Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the most important segments that I've ever done. Hit subscribe, share this segment, especially with people who think that there are good Republicans, that there are Republicans like Steve Schmidt and Mitt Romney, or Jeb Bush, or Paul Ryan, or Ben Sasse, or really good Republicans who could just take back the GOP to its former glory of never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts and miserably failed foreign policy and other controversies. President Trump won in 2016 because of the Lincoln Project. It took about 3 seconds for Trump to completely annihilate and obliterate Jeb Bush on the debate stage. The George W. Bush years were the worst. He was the worst president in the history of this country. He took a moment. He took a time period in U.S. history when we could have made the world safer. We could have made our country safer. Instead, we did the exact opposite. Because of Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld. And you have Liz Cheney in the GOP and others still continuing that mindset. President Trump not only stood against that, he ended the longest-running military conflict in American history. He presided over the Abraham Accords. He was the first president to step foot in North Korea, to begin détente between North and South Korea. And he ended arms deals, which were covert regime changes. He opposed what President Obama did in Libya with a failed NATO intervention that turned that country into a failed state. And he opposed all the interventions and regime changes of the Bush years. He was the opposite in terms of he wanted to reverse U.S. foreign policy. And that's his appeal to people of all different backgrounds. I used to be the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post. I used to be the unofficial scribe of Sanders' most hardcore voters, according to the Washington Post. My articles in The Hill, the Huffington Post Salon, went viral in 2016. You can go to my website, hagoodman.com. You can see my writing in The Hill, the Huffington Post Salon, the Jerusalem Post. I have a great article on AOC and her revisionist historical claims, and which is why Yad Vashem refuted her absurd analogy and claims, and I talk about that in my op-ed in the Jerusalem Post on hagoodman.com. But you can see my debates. If you want to support my voice long-term, my Patreon is below on hagoodman.com and also in the pinned comment and description. But ladies and gentlemen, why will President Trump continue to gain influence within the Republican Party? Well, Steve Schmidt just resigned, which is a huge victory for Trump. A huge, monumental victory. He will be acquitted. It's a certainty. Now, I'm not going out on a limb here, okay? But this is just one of the many things I've been right about. He will be acquitted. I'm wrong about, certain things, but I'm spot on when it comes to the overall analysis the past 4 or 5 years. And I was the only person who said that Clinton would lose to Trump on the left. At that time on the left. But Trump will be acquitted 100%. There is no chance that he's convicted because they need 66 senators and they're not going to get 17 GOP defectors to vote alongside Democrats. You need 60 votes for the 14th Amendment to officially ban or prevent Trump from running again. They might make it close. They might get 6 or 7 Republicans, Ben Sasse, Mitt Romney, and others, but you're still not going to get 60. Okay? So they're not going to be able to prevent Trump from running again. In 2022, the House will be controlled primarily by Trump Republicans. The primaries will see Republican candidates who support President Trump renegotiating NAFTA into the USMCA, tearing up the Trans-Pacific Partnership, engaging in tariffs instead of the TPP. There are populist policies that actually resonate even with left-leaning people that President Trump engaged in. He allocated more funding to historically black colleges and universities than any president ever. Clinton, Bush, President Obama never did that. and made the funding permanent. He signed the First Step Act. Biden wrote part of the crime bill that was directly linked to the 100-to-1 sentencing disparities for the same narcotic that his son used, Caligula. But here, this is a monumental victory for President Trump, because President Trump is, let's say, belligerent. He has a personality that's in your face, and when he's provoked, he, retaliates. And he's like a bulldozer and a sledgehammer. And oftentimes, sometimes that's good. A lot of the time, it might not be so good, especially in social media. But these people live like Democrats, never Trump Republicans, Hollywood. They live in cyberspace. They don't live in reality. And if you live in cyberspace long enough, you begin to think that all your skeletons will be hidden by just the groupthink and the influence that you gain by, spewing contempt against Trump. The people who dislike Trump the most have engaged in the most egregious criminal acts, the most immoral deeds, the most disgusting and nefarious behavior. Ever wonder why every Hollywood producer, every Hollywood director, actors, the Lincoln Project, Comey, other people, all the liberal pundits, ever wonder why they've devoted their lives to despising President Trump? It's not because of policies like the First Step Act. It's not because of policies like removing Americans from never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts, which is what President Trump was setting the groundwork to do. They reveled in the, they were so proud. They said, the intelligence community lied to Trump, or the Pentagon officials lied to Trump about his withdrawal from Syria. I mean, these are the types of people you're talking about. But here, I want to read you this. Lincoln Project co-founder Steve Schmidt resigns. It's the Steve Schmidt and Jeff Weavers and Rick Wilsons and Bill Kristol's of the world. What did Bill Kristol know? He's not part of the Lincoln Project. He went after Jim Jordan for being a part of a wrestling program where other people were alleged to have committed criminal activity, not Jim Jordan. Bill Kristol is always, he's one of the Bush era foreign policy hawks, along with Schmidt, along with Weaver, along with Wilson, along with the Lincoln Project, the other guy married to Kellyanne Conway. What's his name? You know who he is. I know who he is. But these people have the most skeletons. And now that the Democratic Party doesn't need them, just coincidentally, we're finding all of this out. These are the same people who have all the suffering and chaos and misery and all the lives lost and all the PTSD cases and traumatic brain injuries and hundreds of thousands of lives lost from the chaos and the power vacuums that they caused with their horrendous, devastating, catastrophic foreign policy that Democrats adopted. Do they have all of that? Are they legally responsible? Are the Lincoln Project people legally responsible for all the atrocities linked to their foreign policy? Because apparently Trump is directly responsible for what happened, because people, for the actions of people that had nothing directly to do with Trump. That what those people did at the Capitol was despicable, and those 5 people should be alive today. But Trump didn't tell them to do anything. He shouldn't have had the protests that day. There should have been a dialogue and discourse, debate, discussion about what he wanted to convey to the public. But there was nothing to be gained from protests that day, and look what happened. But here, the Lincoln Project co-founder Steve Schmidt resigns. There has been an exodus from the anti-Trump group following revelations of Jeff Weaver's predatory behavior. Lincoln Project co-founder Steve Schmidt resigned from the embattled anti-Trump organization Friday night, claiming he did so to make room for the appointment of a female board member. Yeah, right. This is what they do. It's the most absurd. Nobody on the left believes this, by the way. I'm no longer part of the left, but that's where I come from. My whole life, I was a lifelong Democrat, liberal, and then progressive, and then far left, whatever you want to. Bernie Sanders supporter, and then I realized that he's a phony. Politically, he's a phony. Might be a good human being, but he's a fraud in terms of politics. They won't even abide by their promises on stimulus checks. So you can forget about Medicare for All, Green New Deal legislation, not resolution, universal basic income, AOC and Bernie Sanders and the $20 million venture capital people, which, by the way, have their own skeletons. We saw their own skeletons, so much so that Bernie Sanders couldn't even endorse Cenk Uygur. He unendorsed him. The never Trump world, the people who are obsessed with Trump, with contempt towards Trump, they have the worst skeletons in their closet. And you're seeing this right now, more so than anything Trump has been accused of, because you see the difference is there are emails, there's evidence pointing to disgusting behavior. Where's the evidence against Trump? Okay, so there's accusations, but there's accusations and a lot more evidence against Biden with Tara Reid. Criminal report. You have a 1993 call-in, Larry King Live. You don't have that with Trump. And with Trump, you had a hot mic. Nobody ever accused him of that specific act. And you have Biden being accused of that specific act. And it's like people who dislike Trump can't. They're like programmed. It's like a program. It's like an AI robot that just can't. It's not programmed to understand basic logic. But here, Lincoln Project co-founder Steve Schmidt resigned. Okay, presently Lincoln Project. Nobody believes his absurd excuse. But here, Axios was first to report on Schmidt's exit, which follows an exodus of senior staff since Associated Press and New York Magazine ran breakthrough reports indicating that leadership of the Lincoln Project were aware of at least 10 allegations against co-founder John Weaver in June 2020. Two of those allegations involve Lincoln Project employees who were communicated to leadership after Schmidt and other colleagues denied having any knowledge of Weaver's behavior. So there's emails, there's evidence, okay? Here you have an issue where there's evidence, so much so that, those tweets were later removed after co-founder George Conway, who left the group in August, warned that its actions may have broken federal law. So you have a whole bunch of people resigning. This was one of the moral foundations of contempt against Trump. You had liberal Democrats, good, morally superior. Oh my God, do you understand? A great many liberal Democrats wake up in the morning and they say, thank God, actually many of them are atheists, so they say, it's a scientific fact that I'm morally superior to the Neanderthals who vote for Trump. This is how they view the world, and they retweet the Lincoln Project people as if it bolsters their claim that Trump's not really a good Republican. He's not really a good Republican. You see what they're saying. This is what Democrats have done, and good morally superior liberals have done for 3-4 years. Lincoln Project. Oh, they're getting him. Oh my God, this is like, these are the Republicans standing up to Trump. No, they're not. The GOP has an 80 to 90% approval rating of Trump today. Today, he could be impeached 30 times. The impeachments are a stretch of logic. A horrendous thing happened. It's directly because of Trump. He planned it. He coordinated. He told people to commit those crimes. No, he didn't. Democrats media allowed weeks and months of endless chaos in the streets of this country, with businesses being boarded up with signs saying, "We believe in your cause. Fill in the left-leaning organization. Please don't torch our business." 19 people lost their lives. Probably more than that. You had $1 to $2 billion in property damage. In Seattle and Portland, you had city blocks taken over. So I don't know what that's called. You had federal buildings under siege. So for some reason, they don't use the same words when it's people associated with the left doing these things. But you had endless images of left-leaning protesters confronting and assaulting and like just going after and attacking law enforcement. And nothing. It was fiery but peaceful protests from CNN. Reporter, it was a meme. They actually turned into an actual meme. A CNN reporter with a building set ablaze behind him. And it's like, so It was horrendous what happened at the Capitol. But that scene took place nightly or every week. And then they tried to go after Lafayette Square and Trump. Where's the footage? I want to know where the footage is. Because I haven't seen like this horrendous footage of protesters being mistreated by law enforcement at Lafayette Square. Where's this? Where are the people, like, you know, where? Okay, every single, Trump never said the 1930s and 1940s Germans were fine people. He actually stated in the C-SPAN quote, and I'm not referring to those people should be condemned on that fateful day. Nobody's lied more than the media. Nobody. Even the fact-checking organizations, the way they manipulate, and like the Washington Post, we rate this. When you rate something 2 or 3 or 4 Pinocchios, or partly or somewhat false or misleading, you are engaging in furthering a debate or discussion. You are not checking a fact. You are helping bolster an existing argument by adding on to that argument with your own argument. You're not, it's not a fact. A fact check is one thing. Yet if someone says the Yankees won the 1955 World Series, wrong, fact check. The Dodgers, the Brooklyn Dodgers, end of story. End of story, end of fact check, no more talking. But they're always misleading and da-da-da, well, it's true. They always start, it's true, what Trump was saying was true, but... And then they just try to spin it to, oftentimes. It's not to say that Trump doesn't lie. Every president lies. He engages a lot in hyperbole, hyperbolic, this is the best economy. We had record low unemployment before the pandemic. Go look at the worst states. That's another thing Democrats do. When a Republican loses his or her life from the pandemic, Democrats say, see, and then, unfortunately, the most lives lost are in Democratic-run states that apparently listen to all the experts and do everything they're told. But Republicans don't say, see, look. So, you're talking about people who engage in the most... Go to the New York Times right now. Cuomo and Phil Murphy... Unfortunately, God bless the people of New Jersey and New York. Only the best people live there. The most amazing people in New York and New Jersey. They lead the country, not only in the pandemic, in per capita rates and the highest number of aggregate lives lost, but also in unemployment. Two of the leaders in unemployment rate. So you can look, 7 of the top 10 states in terms of aggregate lives lost are Democratic-run states. It's not Trump's fault. These Democratic-run states don't listen to Trump. But anyway, the Lincoln Project's on the ropes. It will never again be an influential. It was only influential because of contempt for Trump. When they banned President Trump from Twitter, they actually Trump is like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of politics. They made him more powerful by eliminating the primary vehicle where he got people angry and upset and indignant. See, if you judge a president by his words, if you judge a president by his actions, Trump is one of the best presidents we've had, by far. That's just if you judge him by his actions. If you judge him solely by his words, it's a different story. But I judge people by their actions, not their words. That being said, President Trump made missteps, and he has to learn from them. Give me your thoughts below. Trump annihilated and obliterated yet another bunch of Bush-era Republican neoconservatives. Thank you so very, very much. Hit subscribe right now. I'll be back.